In this lesson, we're going to begin coloring our line work for our 2D avatar and add some final touches to our base expression. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're at a point now where we're really happy with how our colors and values have been blended together. And if we go ahead and just zoom out, we can see how our avatar is registering visually at a small size, and I think it looks excellent. I'm really happy with how this caricature of our geeky looking guy has turned out. So now we're really ready to focus on adding some final touches, and we're going to start with the line work. Now our line work up to this point has just been black, and we'd like to color that line work at a different color. And you may have noticed this in certain animated cartoons or animated films where the line work isn't always black for the entire character. It may be different colors depending on just the overall color scheme of the character. And it just kind of helps tie everything together, just kind of package it all really nicely and visually. And so what we want to do is go over here to our layers panel, and we're going to go ahead and duplicate our line work layer. So I'm just right clicking, and we're going to come down just to where it says duplicate layer, and we'll go ahead and just call this layer line work color. Alrighty, go ahead and commit to that. And for the time being, I'll go ahead and hide the visibility of my just regular black line work. Again, I duplicated this just so I could preserve that in case I ever had to come back to that line work. So with our line work color layer clicked on here, let's go ahead and zoom in and get ready to color our line work. Now before I begin coloring it, let's jump over here to our brush panel, and I may want to turn off transfer, and I'll go ahead and turn on shape dynamics. This way I control my brush tip as it's being applied to the canvas, and I don't really need to control the opacity and flow since I will just pretty well be filling in my line work as a solid flat color. So now what color should we use for our line work, especially around these skin areas? I'm thinking kind of maybe a darker brown. Again, I don't want it to be a stark black, but I also don't want it to blend completely into the skin. So let's go over here up to this palette that we created a couple lessons ago, and let's try this brown first, this kind of lighter brown. And before we begin applying this, if you notice, if we just try to apply our line work, you see how that isn't looking too good at all. It's covering the line work too fat, too wide. It would take us forever to be super precise going over it, and we definitely do not want to do that. So let's go ahead and just take a couple steps back. And let's go over here to our line work color layer, and we basically want to isolate all of these pixels that make up this line work layer. So to do that, we're going to go up here where it says lock, and we're going to click on this button right here. It's a little square button that has some little squares in this inside of it. So just clicking on that, we now have everything isolated. So if I go back over this line work, we can see how we can be very cavalier in our way that we paint over our line work. Now just looking at that, that feels like it might just be a little too light. I may want to try this darker brown up here above, and I think that might work. Let's go ahead and zoom out, and I think that might work really well. Again, I don't want to lose the line work. I don't want to blend it in completely into the skin. I still want it there, but I just want to tone it down some. I don't want it to be this really stark black. So I'm just really quickly going over all these areas where I have line work around the skin. Now for the line work around the hair, I'll go ahead and leave that black just because his hair is really dark, and I don't think that would interfere in any kind of way that it reads visually. It's just coming around here on these wrinkles around the chin area. And we're going to go ahead and leave the line work black around his eyes for the time being. And I'm doing that because I'm planning on adding some lenses. And I want to see how the eyes read looking through those lenses with the black line work first. So we've got our line work colored for all these skin areas. Let's go ahead and zoom out just to see how that's reading. I'm really liking that. I'm thinking that that really just adds to just the overall visual readability of this avatar. Let's go ahead and focus on his shirt line work as well. Now the black is actually working okay for this. I may want to just try a gray color. So I'm going to go ahead and sample this gray that I've got up here in my palette. And I think that'll work well, just going over it. That'll just soften it down just a little bit to where we still see the line work, And this will just kind of tie everything together for his shirt. So just kind of coming around here on the collar, coloring that in on both the screen left and screen right. And we'll go ahead and get that pocket line work as well. And I'm not too worried about the line work around the pen and the pencil. I think that'll be fine. Okay, now we do have some line work that we want to address around the lips. We don't want that to be a stark black. So I'm thinking something that's probably maybe kind of a reddish color. Maybe a, let's see over here in our color swatches, maybe a dark red. We could start with that, and let's just see how that's looking. Now that may be just a little too strong in my opinion. So what we can do now is go over to our brush panel. Let's go ahead and turn on transfer again. And I may want to sample from one of these darker values over here on the screen right of his lips. And let's just kind of put that over that red. And I think that's going to be the color we want to use right there. Alright, let's go back to our brush panel. I'm going to turn off transfer. So I just kind of basically blended those colors to where I thought would be just right when applying that line work around the lips. So with that done, let's go ahead and just create our line work around these lips. That's looking really nice. Alright, let's go ahead and zoom out. Perfect. That looks excellent. So what we've got our line work pretty well colored. Let's go ahead and start adding some lenses in. So what we want to do is go over here to our layers panel, and we're going to go ahead and create a new layer. And let's just go ahead and title this layer lenses. Now I'm thinking maybe a blue color might be appropriate for these lenses. And so we're going to actually experiment how to create these lenses using a couple of different blend modes. So I'm thinking something kind of like a cyan might be appropriate. So I'm just going up here to my swatches panel, and I'm thinking maybe this pastel cyan might work excellent. So I'm just coming in here and filling in this space over where the lenses would go. And I'm just doing this pretty quickly. I'm not worried about it being too perfect just yet around the edges. Very good. We can always come back later and just clean that up. And we'll go ahead and do that on the same side, or on the opposite side rather, screen left. And just filling in this space. And I can always come back again later and just kind of clean up those edges. Okay, so we've got pretty much all of our lens area filled in. Now let's go ahead and experiment with how we can apply these lenses and just make it feel like he's looking through them rather than them being completely solid blue the way they are. So I'm going to go over here to back to my layers panel, and we are still on our lenses layer, and we're going to try one of these different blend modes up here for this layer. And we may want to try and see what lighten looks like. That looks pretty 1980s ridiculous. We can try overlay. Let's see what we get with screen mode. I think that might work, and we may want to go ahead and just bring the opacity way down. We may want to try something around, probably around 25%. 25 to 30% I think might work. Alright, that's feeling pretty good. I'm going to uncheck and recheck the visibility icon here, just to see how that's looking. Let's go ahead and zoom out. Very good. And I think I am indeed going to leave the line work black for the eyes because I think they'll read very well, especially looking through these lenses. Now let's go ahead and add one final touch to these lenses. And so I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer. And I'm going to title this Lens Glare. We're going to basically add a little bit of glare to our lenses here. And I may want to go ahead and just go with a white. And so we'll go ahead and go over our lenses here. And we're going to basically use the same process as we did before. We're just going to add kind of a glare over these lenses and use a blend mode to just help set that in over the lenses that we've already created. And I won't worry about it being too perfect just yet. Again, I can come back and really clean them up, make them nice and pristine for his lenses. Alrighty, let's go ahead and zoom out. And let's go ahead and try a different blend mode to help set these in. So I may want to see what overlay looks like. Hard light. I think soft light might do the trick. And we can always bring that down just a little, maybe around 70%. I think that'll work. So if we zoom out, we can still see his eyes. They still read clearly. Again, I kept the black line work around those eyes to help with that. And we just added an extra level of visual interest to our 2D avatar. So we've got our base expression pretty well established. In the next lesson, we'll explore adding in that additional expression, which will be a shocked expression.